Hi guys, Cliff here, and welcome back to the next episode of the Mercury 4 build stroke restoration. And in the last video you saw the tailplane and fin basic construction put together.
But in this video we're going to start with the rear plank into the fuselage.
Just having a little look at the fuselage, guys. Before I put the plywood in for the tailplane support and put the blind nuts in, I just realised there's a piece of wood missing along the back here. Then I remembered a bit fell out from earlier on, so here it is. So I've got to glue that in there and run as much glue down here as I can. I'm almost tempted to glue it in with epoxy actually, but I think white glue should hold it. So it's a shame that I'm almost tempted to try and sort of split it all the way out, but it's stuck really firmly at the back here, so I can sort of push glue in as much as possible. And there's a former here, here and here I can put glue on, and obviously down the sides. And just looking at it, it looks like I need to sort of put it in at this angle first and then clip it down there. And I'm thinking possibly masking tape. Just a little bit here, is a little bit reluctant to get it in that side, and I can't get it in this side so easily. It might tap down, I suppose. Not too bad. So I'm going to get my white glue out, I think, and sort of run it up the edges and glue it in. Got to say, actually, I am really enjoying this. It's not like you're repairing an aeroplane. I'm adapting it. I'm glad in a way he's only got as far as he's got, because it means that I can actually adapt it a lot easier than had he actually sort of got a totally finished airframe. Makes you wonder, actually, the wings, and this is so far advanced, it makes you wonder if there was a tailplane built at one time. So I'll put it in this side first, down that side, and I've got to pull it together because it's springing slightly. I think I'll put this end piece in now while I've got it all drying. Place that in there like that. Could put tape around, but I'm not sure it's going to hold it enough. I'm not sure. Any little upstand, obviously, you'll just sand off anyway because it's balsa. I've had a good idea as well for fixing the wing. I'm going to use the original fixing method, which is the great big dowels that are inside the bottom, but to access the bands to get in there, I'm going to make two of the side windows removable. That'll give me lots of access into the bands and make it really easy to band the center section on. That's pretty good. I'm happy with that, guys. Somebody, I don't know if it was the original builder or not, has added this 1/4 inch F1, we'll call it, in front of the original F1 and put all this horrible filler in, which is horrible. I think we agree on that. It's a nice solid lump of plywood, but at some time the engine bearers have been cut off, and these are the bearers here. You can see them on the inside still. Somebody's hacked through the dashboard, but two very heavy engine bearers to take a pretty heavy engine, I guess. But why would you mount another engine down on a sort of plastic engine mount halfway down? Why not make this plywood plate the same size as the one underneath it and avoid putting all this filler around? I'm going to try and take this down, sand it down, maybe take the whole lot off, but it's probably glued to the F1, which is 1/8 ply on the inside. So that's fun to work on. The other thing is there's a bit of oil stain in here, the 2 brass tubes let into the fuselage for the plug-in undercarriage wire. I think it was 10 SWG, which is about 1/8 of an inch for the back tube, and the front tube is the same size, where it should be about 6 SWG, about 3/16, because the front undercarriage leg is a lot heavier than the rear one. So do I change that, or do I try and beef up the front undercarriage leg with extra bit of wire? The actual brass tube runs under here, which is only a 16th floor. I could remove that and change the tube. Also on the sides there should be a piece of plywood stuck to the framework here to help take the landing weights. That's been missed off. On the rear one it's there, but the front ones it's been missed off, so I'll have to add that. I've taken the 3 screws out and I'm just levering off this filler. It's coming off reasonably well, I suppose, really, considering. And you can see underneath here the 1/8 F1. I really don't know why would you stick it on and not shape it down to the correct size to save all this extra work. I'm wondering if I moisten this, if it'll make it a little bit softer to remove. Look at that. It's not exactly stuck very well, is it, anyway? Thankfully. I'm going to continue picking all this off, guys, and I'll come back to you soon. Okay, spent a happy half hour or so scraping and chiseling. A bit of heat and a bit of water. I've got the bulk of it off. So now tomorrow what I'll do is take this F1 down to the same dimensions as the one in behind, and that would be that. I'll just put a little bit more glue just in there and I'm done. But it looks pretty solid, so I'm happy with that. Okay, been outside, hand sanded it in the end because the ply is so hard my little Dremel thing wouldn't touch it really. So anyway, I've hand sanded it. It's come out pretty well. And now I'm going to, and I've gone over the you can't really see that, I've gone over the fuselage as well, the bit I glued yesterday. And now I'm going to turn it around and show you what I've done this morning. I glued an extra couple of supports in there to support the tailplane when I clamp it down. So I've got 2 extra supports going down on top of the framework to bring it up to this height. So now I'm going to drill a hole through the bottom and start working on the fitting for the tailplane. When I've got that fitted up, then I can do a balance test. Let me show you something else. I've got 2 4S batteries, a 2.2 and a 6.2. Obviously this is going to give me a lot more weight and a lot more air time, but what I'm thinking is a hatch there straight down through the nose. There's plenty of depth to get that in there. If I need the nose weight, that is exactly where it wants to be. So all I need to do is cut a hatch here, and that makes for a really nice easy battery drop. And I've got, say, a choice of batteries, the 2.2 and the 6.2, so one's going to be a lot heavier. So next job though is to crack on with the tail end and get those fittings in, and then I can sort of do a very rough balance check, because I'm thinking, as you know, to put the servos down the bottom end. Right, so I've just put on the blind nuts on the ply plate, so I'm going to hold the where's that nut gone? I'm going to hold the tailplane down with, and I'm just going to stick it in. Right, so I've got one at the back, which I'm going to place in like that. Alright, I'll leave that slack a little bit because I've got to get the glue into this. Now I want to put some along the back, down the side. I'll put sellotape on the actual structure to stop it sticking, just in case it decides it's going to seep through, you know. And just make sure that that looks pretty good. Since you've seen this, I've sanded the tailplane. Actually, it's not absolutely 100% sanded, but it's getting very close. In fact, I think I'll just put a weight on that actually, just to make sure it's down. It's going to stay there. Okay, so what I've actually done there is to set tubes into the fuselage so as the bolts don't get lost inside. Just plastic tubes, and I've cut off the piece of balsa that was on the floor that the tailplane was sitting on, and replaced it with 1/8 ply, and the bolts go through small holes in the 1/8 ply and into the new plywood pieces I've glued in now to the wing with captive nuts. So now to take tailplane off, I just drop the 2 bolts out and the tailplane will come off. The advantage of that is for transport if you needed to. Here, so all you got to do is disconnect the electrical connections, which will be down inside via a hole that I haven't drilled yet. I've done a sort of a rough balance test without the wings on. Basically, with the battery, this one, this is a big one, it's the one I put in my Fokker triplane, 6.2 milliamp hour 4S battery. It weighs quite a bit. So I put that on the nose, and I put the motor on the nose, and I put the 3 servos in the tail, and it balances just nose down. So not a lot's going to change. Yes, there's going to be a fair amount of weight on the fuselage in the back, and I've still got to make the cowl, and the undercarriage will tilt it forward a little bit, and if I have to add just a little bit of lead, so be it. But it's very close, so I'm happy with that. So I'm just going to have a go at the hatch. Before I do that, I'll just show you a little bit of progress on the tailplane from the last video, and that is this. I've added the top sheeting on the center section. I could pull the pins out. Now, do you know, this is very, very light. So what I'm going to do now is just to draw a nice line straight up and cut that flush, and that gives me something for the film to stick onto. The battery can go all the way up here and drop down between the engine bearers, which it doesn't quite fit between. The 2200 4S does, but not this one. There's a bulkhead just here, which actually, thinking about it, might be a good place to make the cut to, mightn't it? And then I can have a nice clean edge. Okay, I'm going to come in a little bit, both sides. So just let's pencil it on a minute, just get a sort of an idea. If I come in sort of 1/4 inch and about there, say. Now all I've got to do is find something bendy that will go around. Bendy, flexible, and yet won't break. Amend that pencil line a bit. Okay, This is a very small hatch for a very big battery. It's great, isn't it? You can go down vertically, because I wouldn't get it in otherwise, any other way. So I guess now all I need to do is knife it out. Yeah, I'm just going to keep working on this, guys, and I'll be back in a few minutes when it's getting ready to release. There we go. Ta-da. I didn't know any better. It looks like balsa cement. Gosh, that would age it if it was. Okay, so we have a top hatch, guys. Two very dirty looking engine bearers. Very dusty indeed. So all I have to do is to make up a little curved piece to go in each side, little former, and put up some ledges under here for it to sit on. So I'm going to work on all the little fiddly bits, and I'll come back to you when I've got out. See, probably how am I going to retain it? Magnets. I wonder if I could put like a fuel tank vent tube in the top or something, so some sort of scale fitting that I can just use as a handle to lift out. That would be cool. I've drilled it out and dremeled up these sides a bit so it's a bit tidier. So here's the battery. She goes in there, in, and all the way. Goes in with about 8 centimeters, sort of 2.5, 3 inches to spare. So plenty of room for the battery. Now, excellent. Yeah, big hole there now, guys. I'm thinking I might line it with sort of a plywood box for it to slip into. Something else I've done, I've broken out the fuselage floor to have a look at this brass tube that's sewn to the cross member that takes the front undercarriage leg. Brass tube, I'll pick up a bigger brass tube and put in there. Seems how it's got this huge battery weight to take, so it'd be crazy not to beef up the undercarriage a little bit. I've just made a hole at the bottom there, guys. I'm going to mount the ESC right there on the bulkhead. That still gives me enough wood around to make the cowl up out of thick balsa, but that'll be right in front of the air intake, which will help. And then the motor crosshairs are up there, so that's a nice little job. Okay, I've made up a little battery box with a ventilation hole in the bottom. Could drill ventilation holes in it, but to be honest, I don't think it's exactly going to get really hot, and I could do with the weight up the nose, so the battery will sit in there either way, it doesn't matter, like that. And this will fix inside the fuselage. Never fear, the fuselage is big enough to get my hand in. So that will turn into there like that. So now all I've got to do is to fix this to somewhere. I could fix it to the bulkhead. Oh, spot on. Okay, so I'm going to epoxy this to those two cross members there. Actually, I might add a third cross member. Might be an idea to have a strap around the top, Velcro one, just in case I decide to do a loop or something and G-forces don't hold it in. I don't want to see the battery drop out. That would be exciting. Okay, guys, I have a secondary brass tube in. The first one is just behind this former, and my 6mm one is just in front of the former. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to drip sawdust, balsa dust all over this, and then loads of CA, and it'll turn it to like concrete, and that will be my new brass tube in position. Quite happy with that. That's quite a neat, quick job. So I've got lots of balsa dust on around it. Now all I do is to drip some CA in there and stand back, because as you know it fumes quite badly. As you can see in there or not, it's suitably fitted, and you can see the battery tray in the bottom front there. Look, I've now got a 6mm brass receiver for the undercarriage. I've deduced, guys, that the motor has to be 2.5 inches in front of the bulkhead, so I need to make up a box. And so I've been at the shed, I've cut the plywood, so I'm just going to epoxy it all up, and that'll give me a box to bolt the motor onto. Okay, next bit, the lid and this front piece. And then when that's in, I glue on the very front. So that'll give me this area to stick onto the firewall, and a good 1/4 inch, 6mm, something like that, of wood to bolt the motor to. Okay, I've made a little box. That little box on that little motor will actually take it to the correct distance out for the cowl. I have to drill a hole in the middle by the look of it, but I'm going to stick that little box just about, I've got a slight amount of right thrust built in, that's got to go just there. So I'm thinking if I stick that on now with epoxy, it can be set in nicely, and then I can start building up blocks of wood all around it to start shaping down. Well, there we are, guys. The block has been on now for half an hour, so I bet I can pick it up with that now. Oh, I can't because it's too heavy. There you go. Anyway, that's stuck. So there we are. So what I'll probably do is finish the video off here, because it's going to be quite long otherwise. Haven't done a huge amount, but made some really good decisions in what I'm going to do. So I'm going to mount the motor and a spinner on the front and start making up the cowl cheeks for the whole cowl out of heavy balsa. I've got plenty of scope for nose weight there, and I think I'll be nearly ready. I'll tidy up around this cockpit a bit and mask it all off, because that's glued in well. I'm going to punch out the side windows, and they're going to be removable so as I can get the rubber bands in. I'm going to change them all, I think, because they're a bit scruffy, and I'll try and just clean up the front one a bit. Then I'm going to give the whole fuselage a coat of Ronseal interior varnish satin. Quick drying finish, diamond hard. It's been recommended to me by one of the club members to help to bind together all this planking and get a nice hard surface, so that's what I'm going to try. Then I think the fuselage will be, you know, really taking shape nicely, and I'll have to start looking at the wings. I've also got to cut out the, I've got it here, look, I'm just reaching for it, cut out the elevators. I might just do that before I do the wings, actually, because I'm going to have half finished stuff all over the place. So yeah, so thank you very much for watching. As usual, have a look at the join button down below. That really helps the channel. Give it a thumbs up while you're here, a like, and if you want to subscribe, if you're not already, then subscribe as well. And I'll see you in part 3, which will be more of the same. Cheers, guys. Bye. Bye, 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 bye. Cheers, cheers, cheers.